Why do we do the things we do? Today, we're diving deep into this really cool podcast. It's called Mind Matters.
And the best part is it's actually based on science.
Hey, everyone, and welcome back. Ready to flex those brain muscles. Today, we're diving deep into something super fascinating. Theory of mind. You know, that whole stepping into someone else's shoes thing.
Yeah, that incredible ability to understand that other people have their own thoughts and feelings and beliefs, even if they're totally different from our own.
Exactly. And guess what? It turns out this theory of mind thing is put to the ultimate test in a place like Luxembourg.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Luxembourg is like a theory of mind pressure cooker.
Seriously. Think about it. Mixed families, international couples, workplaces where you might have 5 languages flying around in a single meeting.
Talk about a mental workout.
Right. What is it about Luxembourg that makes it such a fascinating case study for theory of mind?
Well, you know how we were saying that theory of mind is all about understanding other people's perspectives?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that culture shapes how that actually works in practice.
Okay, I'm listening.
So in some cultures, individual needs are at the forefront, super important. But then in other cultures, it's more about the group, harmony and what's best for everyone.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and these differences, they can be super subtle, but they're powerful, and they can lead to some pretty crazy misunderstandings, especially in a place like Luxembourg, where you have so many cultures rubbing shoulders.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's you could have a couple, one partner's from Luxembourg, the other's from, say, Japan, and they're trying to plan a vacation.
Oh, and their communication styles totally clash.
Exactly. One's super direct, this is what I want to do, and the other's dropping hints, expecting their partner to just, get it.
And without that theory of mind awareness boom, arguments, hurt feelings, the whole 9 yards.
Oof. So is the key to avoiding these relationship blowups becoming a mind reader?
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Haha.
But no, it's more about developing this thing called cognitive flexibility. It's like mental gymnastics for your brain.
Okay, I like that. Mental gymnastics.
You're basically training your brain to adapt your communication style depending on who you're talking to.
Okay, that makes sense.
And this is where Luxembourg gets really interesting.
All right, lay it on me.
Okay. Picture this. 3 official languages. Luxembourgish, French, German, plus English, which everyone uses for business and international stuff.
Whoa. So people are constantly switching between all these languages?
It's like code switching on steroids. And guess what? This linguistic juggling act actually strengthens those theory of mind muscles.
Wait, seriously? So just by living in Luxembourg, people are getting a theory of mind workout?
You got it. Research shows that multilingual individuals, they often develop heightened theory of mind skills. They're constantly navigating different perspectives, different ways of expressing themselves.
Wow. So it's not just about avoiding those awkward silences at a dinner party. This has real-world implications.
Absolutely. We're talking families, relationships, businesses, the whole shebang.
Yeah. But what about kids growing up in this environment? Are their brains going into theory of mind overdrive?
You could say that. Imagine you're a kid on a playground in Luxembourg, surrounded by other kids speaking all these different languages, playing games with different rules, expressing emotions in ways you might not be used to.
That's wild.
It's like a theory of mind boot camp, starting from a very young age.
That's fascinating. So does that mean that kids in Luxembourg, they hit those developmental milestones faster? You know, the ones like Piaget talked about.
Well, it's complicated, and we have to consider Piaget's work, of course, but it's safe to say that the sheer diversity of their social world gives them a huge head start in understanding that different minds see the world differently.
So you're telling me a kid from Luxembourg might ace that classic Sally Ann test way before a kid from a more homogenous background?
It wouldn't surprise me one bit. They're constantly having to consider multiple perspectives, whether it's figuring out a new game or understanding why their friend from a different culture reacted in a certain way.
Okay, this is blowing my mind a little.
Yeah.
But hold on, is all this theory of mind juggling always a good thing? Are there any downsides to growing up in such a diverse environment?
That's a great question, and it's important to acknowledge that diversity isn't always a walk in the park. While it can boost theory of mind skills, it can also create a lot more room for misunderstandings and conflicts.
So how do we make theory of mind work for us in this kind of setting? I'm guessing it's about more than just being polite or tolerant.
You hit the nail on the head. It's not enough to just acknowledge that other people have different perspectives. We have to actively try to understand them. And that takes effort. It's like a skill we need to develop.
Okay, so what can people do? Like, what are some practical tips for avoiding those theory of mind clashes, whether it's at home, at work, or just out and about in Luxembourg?
Right, right. Well, there's no magic formula, obviously, but there are things we can do at different levels, like
Right.
starting with education. Imagine if schools had role-playing activities where kids could literally step into the shoes of someone from a totally different background.
Oh, I love that. Like a theory of mind simulator.
Exactly. And think about all the amazing stories from different cultures that we could be sharing with kids, exposing them to different ways of thinking and solving problems from a young age.
Yeah, it's like planting those seeds of empathy early on. That makes so much sense. But what about the workplace? We talked about those communication clashes, but how can companies create a more, I don't know, a more theory of mind savvy environment?
For sure, for sure. One thing that companies can do is invest in cultural sensitivity training. Workshops that give employees practical tools for navigating those tricky cross-cultural interactions.
So it's not just about avoiding misunderstandings, it's about turning them into opportunities to learn and grow.
Yeah, and it's not just about formal training either. Think about those casual interactions, like those water cooler moments where colleagues can just connect on a personal level, share stories about their cultures, and build those genuine bonds.
Yeah, it's like fostering a culture of curiosity and openness, where it's okay to ask questions and learn from each other.
Exactly. And let's not forget about the role of government policies, creating spaces for intercultural dialogue, supporting community initiatives that bring people together. Those things can make a huge difference.
So it sounds like it's a multi-pronged approach. We need education, workplace initiatives, A&D government support to really move the needle. But you mentioned earlier that all that multilingualism in Luxembourg is like a theory of mind workout. Is there any, scientific evidence to support that?
Absolutely. Our brains are wired for theory of mind, but like any skill, it needs to be exercised. And studies have actually shown that bilingual and multilingual individuals, they often outperform monolinguals in tasks that require perspective taking.
Whoa. So diversity isn't just some feel-good concept. It can actually make us smarter.
You got it. Think of it like cross-training for your brain. You're constantly being challenged to shift gears, adapt to different ways of communicating.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. The challenges, the opportunities, the brain science. But I think it's time to bring it all home with a real-life example.
I agree. A good story can really help to, crystallize how theory of mind plays out in the real world. And we've got a great one from Ivana Budison's work.
Perfect. Tell us about it.
Okay, so picture this. You're Maria, a Spanish expat who just landed her dream job in Luxembourg.
Right.
She's super excited, but also a little nervous about navigating a workplace where French, German, and English are all used, interchangeably.
Oh, I can only imagine the mental gymnastics. It's like a linguistic obstacle course.
Exactly. And at first, Maria felt completely lost. She struggled to keep up in meetings, felt left out of those quick side conversations, and worried that her ideas weren't being heard. It was tough, really isolating.
Yeah, it's easy to feel invisible when you're constantly trying to decipher what everyone's saying.
Exactly. But luckily for Maria, her team leader noticed that she was struggling. And this is where theory of mind comes in. Instead of just brushing off Maria's difficulties, he made a conscious effort to try to understand her perspective.
Okay, so what did he do?
Well, he implemented a few simple but really effective changes. They started rotating the languages they used in meetings, giving everyone a chance to contribute comfortably, and they started providing written summaries of important information in all three languages, just making sure that everyone felt included and in the loop.
That's awesome. He didn't just accommodate Maria, he created a more inclusive environment for everyone.
Exactly. And the results were incredible. Maria felt more confident, her contributions were valued, and the whole team dynamic just shifted for the better.
This story is a perfect example of how a little bit of theory of mind can go a long way. It's not about being nice. It's about actively trying to understand different perspectives and create a space where everyone can thrive.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a great reminder that theory of mind isn't some abstract concept. It has real-world impact on how we interact, how we build relationships, and how we create a more inclusive society.
Well said. And on that note, let's turn the tables and talk about how this all applies to you, our listeners.
Yes, let's make this personal.
Think about your own life, your family, your friendships, your workplace. Where do you see theory of mind in action? And more importantly, how can you use it to make those interactions even better? We'll give you a moment to ponder that. All right, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you had a minute to think about how theory of mind shows up in your own life. It's amazing how once you start paying attention, you realize it's like everywhere.
It really is like the foundation of any successful relationship, whether it's with family, friends, or colleagues.
Absolutely. And speaking of successful, I think we should give another shout out to Ivana Budison. Her research is really what made this whole conversation possible.
Oh, for sure. What I find so insightful about her work is how she takes this, like, psychological concept of theory of mind and applies it to a real-world setting like Luxembourg.
Right. It's not just theory. It's about understanding how people are actually living and interacting in this super diverse environment.
Exactly. And it gives us a new way to look at those everyday interactions to appreciate the complexity and the challenges, but also the amazing potential for growth.
Yeah, it's like she's given us a new lens to view the world through.
Exactly. And it's also a reminder that theory of mind isn't something you're just born with. It's something you can develop and strengthen over time.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into theory of mind in multicultural Luxembourg, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this conversation?
I think it's this. Theory of mind is about so much more than just avoiding awkward situations or, being politically correct. It's about cultivating genuine empathy, stepping into the shoes of others, recognizing that our own perspective is just one of many.
Beautifully said. And listeners, remember, Luxembourg might be our focus today, but these insights apply wherever you are, whoever you are.
It's a reminder that in our increasingly interconnected world, theory of mind is more important than ever. It's the key to building bridges across cultures, fostering understanding, and creating a world where everyone feels seen and valued.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's all for today's deep dive into the fascinating world of theory of mind. A huge thank you to Ivana Budison for her incredible work, and to you, our listeners, for joining us on this journey of discovery. Until next time, keep those minds open and curious, and remember to step into someone else's shoes every now and then. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely feeling inspired to start applying some of this stuff to my own life.
Me too. It's definitely a lot to unpack.
For sure.
Yeah.
But hey, that's what deep dives are for, right?
Absolutely.
So until next time, happy exploring.
Yeah. Keep those brains working.